much better.
So now we have Alaska. Alaska was our next community that the Canadian community was rather organic. Alaska really started our first grant project, and we just finished our first 2 years and are potentially gearing up for another round of another cohort. So here we have Christy McMurrin from Alaska.
Hi, I'm Christy. I'm a social worker in a Proxy program 0 to 3 in Anchorage. We see children who have developmental delays of some sort or are at risk for developmental delays. So we started, I just use my metaphor as a calving glacier because this is the NRF. So systems change at a glacial pace. Then the NRF comes and breaks off and drops into the water, and we have these ripples that have just continually over the last 2 years rippled out, much in the way that Randy and Caroline talked about. I think one of the significant things, we had 2 semesters of weekly class, and we went through the book, and it was very intense. One of the most important things, though, I think we did was that we mapped a relationship, personal relationship. So we chose someone, it was a child, a husband, somebody that you have a close relationship with, and we did the mapping. I think that really, we had speech therapists, occupational therapists, social workers, early childhood special educators in our group. So it was a transdisciplinary team, and we all work in a transdisciplinary fashion. So the piece that was missing was the mental health piece, and a way to just combine all of that in our other transdisciplinary work. So one thing that happened was we needed to move from a top-down problem-solving approach, how are we going to fix this, to a neurodevelopmental approach, and it requires a strong reflective muscle. So the staff decided that they needed to practice, and so they formed a reflective group where they practiced being reflective. So the rule was you cannot talk about problem solving, you have to talk about your feelings. So it was very, it was like learning a new language, and we were very intentional and specific about it. That spilled over into our team meetings where we talked about the zones, and people would come in and say, you know, I want off this case, and somebody would say, you just need to get into the green. And so we would spend the team meeting getting into green. So the other thing that's happening is that it's going from the cohort groups to our other transdisciplinary team members, to families. A family in Homer, Alaska, there were 2 sites. She called her clinician and said she was going to her child protection caseworker meeting, and she said, I just have to stay in the green. I said, I just have to stay in the green. And the meeting was very successful, and so that is another shift in relationships between child protection. What's happening now is some of the families are starting to talk about using the NRF language with their other mental health clinicians who really don't know about NRF. So it's coming, and here's another example of it being not introduced from a top down, this is what we're going to do, or here's an idea, but from the bottom up, from families who are using the language with their clinicians. And so that is a much more organic, less threatening kind of introduction. The other thing that's happening now, this is our partnering agencies. So we have been doing, talking about it when we're talking to child protection or talking to our guardian ad litems, and describing this. And so it's kind of seeping out into our communities. So the other thing that's happened is that there's partnering agencies that are meeting in a monthly meeting and talking about cases that they had not done before. There's much more collaboration among our transdisciplinary team, and probably most significantly is that we've discovered that we always start too high. We're always starting way above where we need to start. And so we're just slowing down and slowing down and slowing down and starting and using the NRF to know really where do we need to start and what kind of interventions are necessary before we can move up. I'll just read you a quote from an early childhood educator. I use the NRF concept of heart, hand, and head to support my reflections upon parent-child dyads. I also reflect upon stress responses, not only within myself and families, but in the larger community systems of child protection, disability service, and school districts. So it really is we really are becoming early interventionists. So that's what we're doing in Alaska.